بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. Now going through another term called الصريح, صراحة, to make explicit, and kinaya, implicit, implied, not explicit. What do these words mean? We'll go through again. So, if we summarize, we have our Usool al-Shashi, and Usool al-Shashi, we have البحث الأول في كتاب الله. Yes, and in كتاب الله, we had تقسيم الأول. When we studied words, how they were coined. When a word is coined, it can either be for a single meaning, known meaning. If it's one word for a khas fard, khas naw, a khas jins, it's called khas. And that's qat'i dalala. And that can either be mutlaq or muqayyad. Mutlaq means any member of that species or that fard, or that not fard, but any member of that naw or jins. And then we have muqayyad, when we refer to one particular sifa of the khas. Then am has how many members? Multiple members. And how many types of am are there? Two. Am ghayr makhsus, what is that in dalala? Qat'i. And am ghayr makhsus, am makhsus is now the niyu dalala. Correct? Then we have a word whose meaning is not known or is not defined. It's known, but has multiple meanings, called mushtarak. And when you do ta'wil of the mushtarak, it's called mu'awwal. And if you do tafsir, then it becomes mufassar. And mu'awwal is dhanniyu dalala, and mufassar is qat'iyu dalala. Then in the last lesson, we discussed haqiqa and majaz. So haqiqa is when you use a word for the meaning has been coined for. And majaz is then a word which is gone away from the original coinage, original usage. Now we go to sarih and kinaya. What do these mean? We will discuss it inshallah in the lesson. So again, we have a kalima. When we're studying words, we have a single word. When we're studying a word, we can say we're studying a word. That word has a ma'lumul ma'na. Its meaning is known. If it refers to one single word, it is called khas. And khas can be mutlaq or muqayyad. If it has multiple meanings, not multiple meanings, one meaning, but many afrad, it is called am. And am can be ghayr makhsus or it can be makhsus. If the has multiple meanings, it becomes mushtarak. If you do ta'yin of the meaning via ijtihad, it becomes mu'awwal. And if you do interpretation of the mushtarak via tafsir of the mutakallim, it becomes mufassar. Correct? Mufassar from here. Khas is qat'iyu dalala, am ghayr makhsus is qat'iyu dalala, mufassar is qat'iyu dalala, and mu'awwal is dhanniyu dalala. And it's ghayr ma'lum al-ma'na, come in the later lessons. Then we said regarding all of these, the word is known. It can either be used in the known meaning, that's going to be called what? Haqiqa. Or it's used in another purpose. For example, sab'un. So when we say sab'un haqiqa, it means 70, not 69, not 71. Or it can mean kul, every single member. Or the word can be used ghayri ma wudi'a lahu. The exact meaning it was coined for is not used for that. That's called majaz. So sab'una would mean here what? A lot, many. And kul would mean here what? Majority or everything regarding that topic. Correct? And then if you go on from here, we can have, so we know how the word has been coined, we know how it's been used. What's the mutakallim using it in? Correct? So far so good? Everybody following? So we know the word has been coined, or we now know it can be used in different ways. It's been coined for the meaning, but it will not be used in that way. So it can be used haqiqa, majaz. However, the word, the relationship between the word and the mutakallim's murad, is it obvious or is it not obvious? You following? So we know the word has a meaning, but is this meaning haqiqa or is it majaz? What's the meaning? So the way it's been used, is the word and the mutakallim, is it the murad automatically known very easily, or is it a bit more subtle? If it's not explicitly, we say this is called what? Sarih. And if it's not known explicitly, or we're not sure, or initially we wouldn't think that's the intended meaning, that's called what? Kinaya. Are you following? So we say here that as-sarih is when the murad of the mutakallim is zahir. Are you following? So let's say, for example, we have the word sab'una, or we have the word kullun. So if we know in either scenario that the mutakallim is taking the haqiqi meaning, or the mutakallim is taking the majazi meaning, but we can tell very clear, we can say, what is this? Sarih. We know that it's haqiqah. We know it's majaz. If we're not sure what is being meant, that's called what? Mustatir. So we fully know the mutakallim's murad. That becomes sarih. Or we do not know the mutakallim's murad is mustatir. That's called kinaya. You understand that so far? We'll go through detail, it'll become clear as we go along. Look at one example here. The word taliq. Now the word taliq depends how you're using it. So in a lughatan, like forget sharia. When an Arab use the word taliq, one of the meanings is to let something go free. And I can't remember the poem, but in the Muntakhabat we had an example of a poem regarding writing information. And nobody would collect an animal and let it go taliqah, free. I'd rather write your information, store it, preserve it, capture it. So there the word taliq means free, let loose. So when we're not talking in Islamic context, the word taliq means to be free. Atlaqa sarahahu, atlaqa, let go, release. So lughatan, from a lugwi perspective, from a language perspective, between taliq and divorce. So this is what majaz. The word taliq, from a linguistic perspective, is mawdu'. It has been coined to refer to letting somebody go. But metaphorically, from a linguistic perspective, is majaz for divorce. If we're in a classroom or we're in a book of fiqh, now the word taliq in sharia is haqiqah for what? For divorce. So in this scenario, taliq refers to divorce. This is haqiqah. So in a shari context, it's haqiqah. In a shari language. Does everybody understand? So the word taliq, depending on which language you're speaking, it's in Arabic. Are you talking the language of the lugha, or are you talking the language of the sharia? If you're talking about a linguistic perspective, talaq and taliq means divorce majazan. And a shari perspective, taliq means divorce haqiqatan. But in either case, when you say anti taliq, what's the mutakallim's murad? Anti taliq. She's divorced. So is it sarih or is it kinaya? It's sarih. So whether we say it's majaz, whether it's haqiqah, whether a person is speaking to his wife, he says anti taliq. Correct? So whether we say it's majaz from a linguistic perspective or the haqiqah from a shari perspective, when that word is said, the mutakallim's murad is zahir. We know clearly that here he means talaq. Do you understand? It's called sarih. Does that make sense? Let's try a few examples to get more clarity. First definition. as-Sarihu lafdhun yakunu al-muradu bihi zahiran. Sarih is a word whose intended meaning is very clear. Whether you're talking about haqiqah, whether you're talking about majaz, when the mutakallim says that word, you know directly or immediately, very clearly what is meant. كَقَوْلِهِ بِئْتُ وَاشْتَرَيْتُ. So بِئْتُ and اشْتَرَيْتُ are haqiqah. There's no majaz in this. But when the person says this, it means what? Straight away? It means purchasing and selling. So the meaning, the murad, is haqiqah and the murad is sarih. So these are haqiqah. Ba'i is to buy something. So haqiqah. It's a haqiqah. But when the mutakallim says it, do you know his murad straight away? Yes, that he means haqiqi meaning. This is sarih. وَحُكْمُهُ. The ruling of a sarih word, أَنَّهُ يُوجِبُ ثُبُوتَ مَعْنَاهُ. Whatever meaning it is, بِأَيِّ طَرِيقٍ كَانَ. Whatever tariq it is, the meaning will be established. For example, ikhbar. If a person has a jumla khabariyah and he says anti taliq, what does he say? Anti taliq. That's a jumla khabariyah. So the sarih meaning of this is divorce. That will be the murad. He says anti mra'atun taliqun. It's a na'at. He uses a na'at. So it's sarih. We know that the meaning of anti mra'atun taliqun is what? it means divorce. That means with Thabit. He says, Ya taliq to his wife, or one who's divorced. We said the intended meaning is very clear. Wa min hukmihi, and the hukam, so two hukam. One is whatever meaning, the meaning will be established, however we establish it. So if he says to his wife, Anti taliqun, jumla khabariyah, Anti maratun taliqun, that's a snat, it is nida. Whichever way he uses this sarih word, the hukam of the sarih word will be established. So in all three of these cases, what will take place? Divorce. Because the word taliq in these three cases are sarih to mean divorce. And because it is sarih, it is the murad is known. So وَمِنْ hukmihi, so the rule of a sarih word, أَنَّهُ يَسْتَغْنِي عَنِ النِّيَّةِ. You do not need niyyah. That word has a haqiqah and a majaz, or it has different possibilities, but the intended meaning is explicit, is clear. His niyyah will have no i'tibar. Because why? It is clear. We know what is meant. For example, وَعَلَى هَذَا قُلْنَا إِذَا قَالَ لِمْرَأَتِهِ, if he says to his wife, أَنْتِ طَالِقٌ أو طلقتك أو يا طالق يقع الطلاق نوى به الطلاق أو لم ينوي. Whether he makes the intention of talaq or not, talaq will take place. Why? Because these words, the murad of the mutakallim is clear. There's no istita' in the murad. So you will say here, anti taliq. When the word is used, the word taliq is haqiqa shari aspect, it's a majaz and a lugwi aspect. But either whatever way you look at it, when this word is said, the meaning is zahir, is sarih, to mean divorce. The divorce will take place. وَكَذَا لَوْ قَالَ لِعَبْدِهِ أَنْتَ حُرٌّ أَوْ حَرَّرْتُكَ أَوْ يَا حُرٌّ. In all of these cases, the slave becomes free. Because why? These are sarih, these words, whether it's a khabar, أَنْتَ حُرٌّ, or a fail, حَرَّرْتُكَ, يا نِدَاء, يا حُرٌّ, يا رَجُلٌ حُرٌّ. And that, whichever way you use a word is sarih, explicit in that meaning, that murad, niyyah wouldn't count. You can't go to court and argue, I didn't mean talaq. The judge will say no. If you said ya hur, ya anta hur, the slave can go to court and say he said ya hur, and 2 minutes have heard this saying ya hur. He can't say, oh, my intention wasn't this. Because why? These are sarih in this bab. The word ya hur is sarih to refer to talaq, to refer to itq. So therefore the slave will win the case and he will become free. Another example. Have you guys understood so far? He's given an example here. It's a bit side issue, or a bit doesn't fit 100%. But he says here, وَعَلَى هَذَا قُلْنَا إِنَّ التَّيَمُّمَ يُفِيدُ الطَّهَارَةِ. That when you have tayammum will give the faida of tahara. It's a full tahara. Tayammum is a full tahara. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَكِنْ يُرِيدُ لِيُطَهِّرَكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to purify you. So this word, يُرِيدُ لِيُطَهِّرَكُمْ, Allah wishes to purify you. This is sarih fi husul taharat bi. It's mentioned in the siyaq of tayammum. Correct? So which means that tayammum is what? It means of tahara. So based on this verse, it's sarih that tayammum will give the faida of tahara. Mutlaqa. There's no difference between wudu and tayammum. The only difference is when it's permissible. But the faida of both of them is the same. There's no difference in the faida. The difference is in where? When it's permissible to do wudu. When it's permissible to do tayammum. But there's no ruling regarding the difference between them. Why? Because Allah has mentioned the hukam of tayammum, which is what? Tahara. It's sarih in this. Correct? Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh, I'm not sure if this is Masab, but it's mentioned here. There's 2 opinions. One is أنها طهارة ضرورية. It's not a mutlaq tahara. It's not a full tahara. It's quite limited. And we'll understand how. And the other aspect is that it is أنه ليس بطهارة. It is not actually tahara. It simply covers up the hadath. It conceals or stops the effect of the impurity. What's the faida of this? وَعَلَى هَذَا يُخَرَّجُ الْمَسَائِلُ عَلَى الْمَذْهَبَيْنِ. So for example, جوازه قبل الوقت. According to us, is tayammum permissible before the time enters? Yes, because it's just a wudu. So therefore, you can perform tayammum before time, before maghrib, before asr time. According to Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, no, you have to perform it in the time. Because it's like it's not mutlaq tahara, it's a zarura. So the zarura only comes about during the time. Another example, can you do 2 farad with 1 tayammum? According to us, yes, same ruling as wudu. I think according to Imam Shafi, as what Sahib Usool al-Shashi is saying, no. وَإِمَامَةُ الْمُتَيَمِّمِينَ لِلْمُتَوَضِّئِينَ. If the imam is mutayammim, can he lead mutawaddi' in salah? According to us, according to Imam Shafi, because the tahara is different. One is a higher level, lower level. The imam has to be a higher level. وَجَوَازُهُ بِدُونِ خَوْفِ تَلْفِ النَّفْسِ أَوِ الْعُذْرِ بِالْوُضُوءِ. We say that if you have a fear of getting more sick by doing wudu, whether you fear your whole body you will die, or whether you fear your part will freeze to death, simply if the water will increase your illness, what do we say you can do? Tayammum, because tayammum is a satisfactory naib. Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi says you can only do tayammum, according to what's mentioned here, if it's talaful nafs or talaful udhr. You fear you will either die or your limb may get destroyed, meaning it may freeze or it because some talaf destruction. وَجَوَازُهُ لِلْعِيدِ وَالْجَنَازَةِ. According to us, we can use it for Eid and Janazah. According to Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, I don't know, probably not, because you can it's not wide, not farad. وَجَوَازُ بِنِيَّةِ الطَّهَارَةِ. According to us, once you do niyyah of tahara, it's fine. Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi say you have to do niyyah of tayammum. Because why? We're saying that it's yutahhirakum. Allah has put tayammum to cleanse you. It is sarih that tayammum is a naib of wudu. It is tahara. So therefore, all of these masail, we will allow it. Have you understood sarih? So sarih is when you can clearly understand the murad of the mutakallim. There's no istitar, ambiguity in the murad. So we know what the word means. It may have a haqiqa or a majaz meaning, but we say no, we could tell the murad clearly. It's called sarih. You following? So in am khas, mushtarak mu'awwal is how the word has been coined. In haqiqa and majaz is how the word is being used. And in sarih and kinaya is our ability or the psalmist's ability to understand and comprehend the murad of the mutakallim. Do you understand? So now we've done 4 terms. Khas and am, mushtarak and mu'awwal. And the khas we had mutlaq and muqayyad. And the am we had maqsoos and ghayr maqsoos. And the mushtarak we had mu'awwal. And then we had mufassar as well. And in haqiqa we had majaz. And we had haqiqa, muta'addira, musta'mala and mahjura. And under majaz we have majaz muta'araf and umum majaz. Now, all of those aside, how is the mutakallim using it? Can we tell it straight away what his intention is? Yes. What is it going to be called? Sarih. And if you're not clear what his intention is, what do you call this? Kinaya. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nasalli ala rasulihil kareem amma ba'd. So, in the last lesson, we discussed sarih and we started explaining what kinaya means. Now we're going to go through the definition and a few examples of kinaya. So the author says, والكناية هي ما استتر معناه. That the intended murad. He says معناه, but the meaning is the معناه al-murad. The intended meaning of the speaker is not totally clear. فهمت? And he gives an example. والمجاز قبل أن يصير متعارفا بمنزلة الكناية. So we have a majaz. If this majaz is well known, do you automatically understand what is being said? If it's a well known majaz. So that word, is it sarih or is it kinaya now? It's sarih. Because when you say that kinaya, you immediately understand he means the kinaya meaning. However, if we have a metaphor which is not common, is not muta'araf, and you say that word and it's not yet been mentioned, it's not been well known, it's not become well known, and your intended meaning is a majaz. Is that sarih, is that kinaya? Kinaya, because you're saying a word and your intended meaning is not immediately clear to the mukhatab. So a majaz, before it becomes muta'araf, is also a kinaya. Do you understand? Because in its isti'mal, in the intended meaning is not 100% clear to the addressee. Now, when you have a kinaya, what is the hukm of a kinaya? وَحُكْمُ الْكِنَايَةِ ثُبُوتُ الْحُكْمِ بِهَا. Whatever hukam that word, that statement gives, that will come into play. Fine? For example, if he says a kinaya and it's a talaq, a kinaya for a ataq, freeing somebody, comes into place. Kinaya for sale, the sale will come into place. You understand? However, in the wujud niyyati aw bidalalat al-hal, because the kinaya has murad is not clear. There's two possibilities. It's what do you mean? So because of this, we have to have a murajjih to prove that is the meaning. So he's saying here, whatever ruling comes about, whatever ruling comes into place, whether it's buying, selling, renting, accepting, nikah, talaq, i'taq, any of these, whatever that statement gives, whatever meaning that statement gives, that will come into place. However, in the wujud niyyati aw bidalalatil hukmi, but you must have wujud niyya or dalalatul hal. Either the mutakallim says this is my niyyah, or the surrounding context, either the text or the situation, the physical situation, helps us determine this is the meaning. And it will translate here as since, ta'lil. Why? La budda lahu min dalilin. Since we must, la budda, it came before in many books. Since we must have a dalil by which the taraddud, the uncertainty, comes to an end. What is your intended meaning? Is niyyah or dalalatul hal? The dalalatul hal literally means the indication of the situation. So the way you're speaking, what you're talking about, who you're speaking to, any of these things are a kinaya, a qarina, to help us understand the murad of the mutakallim. So why do we have to have one of these two? We have to have a niyyah, or we must have a dalalatul hal. Since we must have a dalil via which the uncertainty comes to an end. And one of the possible meanings becomes rajih, preferred and determined. Fine? Do you understand? Yes? Okay. وَلِهَذَا الْمَعْنَى. So now you have a question. وَلِهَذَا الْمَعْنَى سُمِّيَ لَفْظُ الْبَيْنُونَةِ وَالتَّحْرِيمِ كِنَايَةً في باب الطلاق لمعنى التردد واستتار المراد. Because of this. Because of what? Because a kinaya word has multiple wujuh, and the murad of the mutakallim is not immediately clear, and we must have either a niyyah or dalalatul hal to indicate the intended meaning of the mutakallim. Because of this, if a person uses baynuna words, he says ba'in, anti-ba'in, I explain that very shortly, or he says anti-haram, these are called kinaya in the rulings of talaq, babi talaq, in the masail of talaq. Because baynuna and tahrim have taraddud, ambiguity, and the intended meaning is mustatir. Yes? Why is this? Let's go over here. This is Al-Fadhu Talaq, it's al-Quduri, it's a recap. The words which are used for talaq are either sarih or kinaya. Are you following? Okay. In sarih words, what occurs? Talaq raj'i. In kinaya words, some of them have talaq raj'i and some have what? Talaq ba'in. How does this work? If you say anti taliqun, this is now sarih. Well, it's already here, sarih. Why? Because when you say this word, it is explicit that talaq is meant. Correct? And this word is mawdu'atun lit-talaq and dhahirun fi talaq. It's like very clear. Talaq is the intended meaning. You follow? Yes? Is that clear to everybody? Achha. If you say i'taddi, Now, i'taddi means to count. Yes? But what we say here is, it is not mawdu for talaq. But it has now become very clear to refers to talaq. I mean, I start counting your iddah. So even as a kinaya word, it is dhahir fi talaq. So that's why we say talaq raj'i will occur. So even as a kinaya. But when you say anti haram, ya anti ba'in, these words are neither mawdu'atun li talaq, they haven't been coined for talaq, and the murad is mustatir, mutaraddid. Because the word haram has multiple meanings. In our way of understanding, we always mean impermissible. But in the Arabic language, haram and ba'in have multiple meanings. Haram can mean anta muharram, mash'alul haram, al-mash'alul haram, the sacred mosque. If a person says to his wife, anti haram, we would have to look at the dalalatul hal or the intention of the mutakallim, because the word anti haram is mustatir, the murad. What does he mean? If they are having a conversation about talaq, then he says anti ba'in, ya anti haram, then the dalalatul hal will do ta'yeen of this kinaya word, that it means talaq. But because it's not a sarih word, talaq ba'in will take place. Ba'in means wala yakadu yubin, to make extinguish, to distinguish, to be clear, to be apart. So you apart from me, you're separated from me, one possible meaning. Or the other meaning could be, you are apart from the all other women, you're distinguished. So these kind of words, they're not mawdu for talaq and they're not zahir for talaq. So therefore talaq ba'in will take place. So anti haram, anti ba'in, these are words which are not mawdu for talaq and they're mustatir, mutaraddid fi talaq. So therefore talaq ba'in will take place. That's what he's saying here. So because the word baynuna, ay anti ba'in, and tahrim, anti haram, these words are mustatirul murad, mutaraddidul ma'na. Therefore, what will take place? A talaq ba'in. Yes? La annahu ya'malu amal talaq. We don't say the same thing that came before, that the kinaya for talaq, so therefore not talaq will take place. And therefore talaq raj'i. You following? These are kinaya. So if you say this is a kinaya for talaq, it has two possibilities. When you say kinaya in talaq, what kinaya can mean, it is a kinaya, meaning we say kinaya or we mean the word talaq. And the word kinaya fi talaq can also mean mustatirul murad. Are you following? If we make this meaning, that the word anti ba'in, anti haram are substitutes for the word taliq, what would occur in that situation? Talaq raj'i. If you say the word anti ba'in is actually replacing talaq, but we don't mean it's kinaya for talaq, meaning it replaces talaq. We mean it's kinaya, mean it's mustatirul murad, mustatirul murad. The murad is not clear. The murad is not obvious. So because of that meaning, it becomes talaq ba'in. So when you say that the word baynuna and tahrim are kinaya fi talaq, does it mean it substitutes the word talaq? What does it mean? That the murad is vague, the murad is ambiguous. Because of this, talaq ba'in will take place. Fahim? Yes? So yatafarra'u, yatakharraju. So based on this, we say that hukmul kinayat fi haqqi adami wilayat al-raj'ah. That if a person was to say one of these words, would he have raj'at or not? Can you do ruju to his wife or not? No, because the kinaya, not kinaya ni talaq, but kinayatun bi ma'na mustatirul murad. And anything was mustatirul murad, then talaq ba'in takes place. So everybody follow this? So let's look at a few examples from our historical texts and to understand how the fuqaha have used the word kinaya and sarih. وَلِوُجُودِ مَعْنَى التَّرَدُّدِ. Because of the taraddud, the ambiguity, the possible double meanings of these words, لَا يُقَامُ بِهَا الْعُقُوبَاتِ. Those capital punishments cannot be established via kinaya. Because in Islam, the hudud are not there just to grab somebody and cut somebody's hands off or kill somebody, or that's not the maqsood. The maqsood is to create justice and create a system where everyone respects the law. But whenever there's a possibility of any doubt, these rules like become saqit. So for example, if a person thieves, but there's a famine, they will drop the had. You're following? Because it's different. A person goes and steals a can of corn, so that's a very small, minute amount. And a person walks in a jewelry store and just starts raiding everything. It's different. Yes? So if a person is starving, it's a very small amount. This is the shubha in there. He got zarura. He's trying to feed his family. When he goes to a laptop or a phone, it's different. So anything is a shubha. Any shubha that comes about, you can still, that person be guilty of the crime, but the main punishment will not take place. You following? So in kinaya, the murad is mustatir. So therefore, what comes in? A shubha. Because of the shubha, we say now you cannot have uqubat. For example, حتى لو أقر على نفسه في باب الزنا والسرقة, if he was to do iqrar and confess to zina, to theft, using kinaya words, لا يقام عليه الحد, had will not be established upon him until he clearly does sarih al-fadh. And even then, he said, just go away. Don't need to confess. Just go to tawbah between you and Allah. Just leave it. Following? But if he comes and confesses, he will only have the punishment of the uqubat and the hudud if there's a sarih word. The other words have what possibility? Double meanings. And when you have double meaning, shubha, leave it. Another example. ولهذا المعنى لا يقام الحد على الأخرس بالإشارة. If a person can't speak and he does isharat. Now, we have an established sign language now, so I don't know if the rule will slightly change, but in those times there wasn't a fixed known sign language. They would express it in ishara, you would understand, but it was a universal sign language. So based on that time, if a person was to do ishara of theft, or ishara of zina, or ishara of some other crime which necessitates had, we say no, the had won't be established. Why? Just because there's a shubha. Because of that shubha, the had becomes saqit. You understand? وَلَوْ قَذَفَ رَجُلًا بِالزِّنَا. Next example. If a person says, accuse another person of zina, فَقَالَ آخَرْ صَدَقْتَ. This is sadaqta, you spoke the truth. So person A says person B, you done zina. Person B says sadaqta. Say, لَا يَجِبُ الْحَدُّ. Had is not wajib. Why? لِاحْتِمَالِ التَّصْدِيقَ لَهُ فِي غَيْرِهِ. Maybe he meant sadaqta is something else. Maybe he's talking about something else. Yeah, I'm very sinful. Maybe he says, yeah, you're always right. Even because in hudud, we want to drop the hudud all the time. And there's a possible ihtimal of something else. For him. So even because of this, they will know had. And how the fuqaha have understood the word sarih and kinaya and applied the different rulings in their time. For him. So that's sarih and kinaya. So if you summarize, we are now analyzing, we're doing Kitabullah. In Kitabullah, what do we have? So a summary of what we've done in Kitabullah so far is we've studied words from two aspects. Coinage. How that word has been coined for. That's called wad'. What is that word meant to be used? And these two is isti'mal. How is that word actually used? Correct? If the word has a known meaning, we say it's either khas or am. Correct? And in khas, you can have a mutlaq and muqayyad, referring to specific qualities. An am, ghayr maqsoos, and am maqsoos. You have a mushtarak, multiple meanings. If you derive from the context, it's called mu'awwal. If you derive from the mutakallim's bayan, it's called mufassar. In here, was qat'iyyu dalala, the khas, and the ghayr maqsoos. And the mufassar. What is the niyu dalala? The am maqsoos and the mu'awwal. The niyu dalala. Then we know the original coined meaning, but sometimes you can go away from the coined meaning to another meaning. That meaning is called majaz. That's called majaz. Fahim? We have haqiqa and majaz. Now, sarih kinaya means, okay, the word has a haqiqi meaning. or the word may also have a majaz meaning. So whichever meaning that word has, how do we understand, how easy is it to understand the murad? If the murad is clear, it becomes sarih. If the murad is not clear, it's ihtimal. Then we say it's called kinaya. And for kinaya, we must have a context. The context can either be his niyyah, or the context can be dalalatul hal. These things will help us determine what the meaning is. In certain examples, a word, at certain times, certain areas, certain locations, a word may be kinaya. In a certain place, it becomes sarih. After that word becomes determined in that one. Are you following? Like for example, we could say, my lawyers, you'll be getting divorced, you'll be receiving divorce papers. Now, that could be kinaya at one time, and after a while it becomes so common that now becomes sarih, because majaz muta'aruf. Before ta'aruf, it's a kinaya. After ta'aruf, it's sarih, because now we know the meaning straight away. Well, we know what's intended straight away. So the murad is either sarih or it's kinaya. Is that clear to everybody? Any questions? سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك